So welcome everyone to our third live session of the Food Systems e-course. This week we'll dive deeper into the world of food system transformation. And I would now like to give the word to my lovely colleague, Herman Snel, who will be moderating the rest of this session. Herman, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Bram. And let me first start off by saying hello to everybody. My name is Herman Snel, and I'm one of the colleagues from Wageningen University and Research that is supporting this wonderful food systems e-course. And I'm very honored actually to be here today to host today's session for the third module on food system transformation. We really hope that you've been enjoying the learning content that we've been putting and compiling for you on the Curator platform. I was just speaking to my fellow facilitators, moderators, that I'm so astonished by the great responses and the incredible work that you guys have done on the learning platform. Very elaborate, very knowledgeable responses. So I'm learning a lot from you already and learning from your experiences. Very nice to see that. So thanks for your efforts in that regard. I'm not going to talk a lot about myself today because we actually have brought two wonderful guest speakers that are going to talk about their experiences in food system transformations and their thoughts about food system transformation. And today we brought two very fascinating guest speakers. I'll introduce them very briefly, and then I'll give them some time also to introduce themselves a bit more in detail. So we brought along Sylvia Kuria, who is an entrepreneur working on food system transformation. And at the same time, she's one of the fellows of the African Food Fellowship, which is a leadership program on food system transformation. Welcome, Sylvia, really glad to have you here. And our second guest speaker is Rebecca, who is a researcher and consultant working on food system transformation. She holds a PhD from the University of Wageningen, and her work focuses a lot on using innovative and transformative approaches to bring together different types of knowledge and different actors and together think about mechanisms to steer and gear and dynamize food system transformation. So also very much welcome. We're really happy to have you with us, Rebecca. And as such, I'm actually going to hand over to Sylvia and Rebecca. If you could just briefly give a little bit more of an introduction to yourselves in a minute or two, and then we'll pass over to their presentation. Sylvia, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Herman, and the whole team for having me here. As you've heard, my name is Sylvia Kuria, and I'm a smallholder organic farmer from Kenya. I've been farming for about 15 years. And we also have a business known as Sylvia's Basket, whereby we have an organic shop where we supply organic produce from our farm, but also from other smallholder farmers, to our clients in Nairobi. I also train smallholder farmers on how to be able to transition, to more sustainable farming practices. And today I'm very excited to be here because I'm going to be sharing my story on how we've been able to grow our farm and also how, we've been able to grow our business in the food system space. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sylvia. Very keen to hear more in detail your presentation. Rebecca, would you mind introducing yourself shortly?
Okay, so Rebecca, as Herman introduced me, I had my PhD from Wageningen University, a research fellow, and I also championed the Climb Agri-Food Initiative on LinkedIn. Maybe some of you might have seen something like Climb Agri-Food Initiative is my initiative to champion food systems transformation ideas, agenda, and then more of an idea to educate the public and also bring research findings to people in the public space. What are farmers saying and research results? So I'm here to also share my empirical research, which I conduct in Ghana, Kenya, Zambia, and other countries in Africa with you. And I'm pleased to be invited to this space. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. The honor is absolutely ours. So we're actually now going to move on. Sylvia is going to be the first one to present, and I've asked Sylvia sort of to present her story, but also looking at what are you trying to transform and how you are going about. Please Feel free to add questions, reflections in the chat as Sylvia presents. After Sylvia's presentation, after Sylvia and Rebecca's presentation, we'll have some open space for more detailed discussions, but use the chat in the meantime. Sylvia, the floor is yours. You've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Herman, and hello to everyone again. And basically for me today, I'm going to be basically just thinking about, food systems transformation by promoting agroecology in Kenya. And from our story, of course, we're going to be looking more of the angle of business and how we're able to get farmers into the marketplace. Okay, so when you think about our like our current food systems, we have a lot of issues, with things about climate change. Of course, like climate change, is the major thing that we're talking about, every COP meeting, we're talking about climate change and the changing weather patterns, which means that, we are having rising temperatures, and that has actually led to deforestation, land and water degradation, biodiversity loss. I don't know whether you guys have heard about, like this, like the windscreen rule, whereby, many years ago when you're traveling out of town, there'd be many insects getting into your eyes or the windscreen, and nowadays we don't see them much because we have really lost so much of our biodiversity. When you think about issues to do with malnutrition and poverty, food insecurity, that has come about, because of, we have really lost our soils, we've lost, our nutrition, because, sometimes you're growing food, but is our food really nutritious? Because our soils have lost all the nutrition that is there. And, and it looks bleak, but, there are solutions. And when you think about our food systems, for me, today, we have actually seen, the benefit of being able to, move to more sustainable farming practices. We've been working with organic agriculture, but now also thinking about agroecology, which is what I want to share about more today. So when you think about agroecology into the food systems, want to think about a more holistic approach to our food systems. Like for us who have been doing organic agriculture for a couple of years, it seemed as if, like organic was a bit narrow, but now we are thinking about something more holistic, whereby, you want to think about the study and the design and management of the sustainable food systems. And, I saw some of the slides that were being shared by Bram, about rural development, that looks like quite a number of us are working in that space, and also having the social dimension. When you think about the work that we're doing, it's not so much about me, myself, and I on the farm, but also about my community, about the market space, about science, about, like local knowledge and things of the sort. And also thinking about the farmers, consumers, and governments. And also remembering that this is all knowledge driven. One of the elements of agroecology, which we're going to be discussing in the next slide, is basically thinking of how do we bring about scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge, bring them all together. And then we are able to actually come up with good solutions that are going to bring, that will give us better food systems. And basically being able to think about how is food being able to connect, the food and the producers, the consumers, and making healthy food accessible. Because when you think about the different SDGs, you also want to think about our diets, our diet sustainable. The way we are running our farming systems today, will we be able to sustain the way we are growing food today for many years down the line? Will our children be able to, have, an option to actually have some good food, have food accessible to them, have food affordable? And so that those are the things I think about sustainable diets. The way we are growing food today, will we manage to grow food in this way many years down the line? When you think about agroecology as the sustainable option that we have here, these are the different elements according to FAO of agroecology. I've mentioned a bit about the human and social values. Who are we considering in the food systems? Young people, gender, men and women, Are they all being considered in these food systems? And then also responsible governance, where is the place of policy in the food systems? In Kenya, we are very lucky. Right now, we've worked very hard with the different actors. We have one county that actually has an agroecology policy, which is Moranga County. But also right now, we have a draft agroecological strategy that hopefully is going to be passed by mid this year. And, having a strategy like that is national will actually be able to change the face of agriculture in Kenya, co-creation of knowledge, being able to blend indigenous and scientific knowledge, culture and food traditions. I was very happy to see the nice pictures of all the foods, that we are growing, and being growing and consuming. We also have to ask ourselves a question: can we be able to grow our own local and consume and even cook our own local foods? Many times we find, because of the way life is generally now, we're eating more food that is processed, but we really have to go back to our food traditions. Circular economy is where I'm going to focus on more today, thinking about, the short food chains. We don't want to have our food travel too far. Diversity, synergies, resilience, recycling, regulations, and efficiency, whereby you have a closed system and whereby, you're having less inputs into the farms and more of the food going out, so that you're able to have a circular system that is more sustainable. And also being able to have, like regulation and trees, like you can see my backdrop is my farm, where we're doing a lot of agroforestry. Resilience, are our crops able to manage the climate change that's happening, the floods, the droughts and things of the sort. So basically here I want to talk about, farmers as the foundation of the food systems. And when you think about it, want to actually be able to ask ourselves, are farmers able to adopt new technologies like agroecology? And we find that, for farmers to actually adopt technologies, you find that markets will be the one that will convince them. If you give a farmer a particular, say, synthetic input like a fertilizer, and then tell them that this will give them higher yields and they'll be able to get to the market, they will adopt it. Access to knowledge, of course, is key. And one of the ways we find that we're able to share knowledge is by having demonstration plots, where farmers can actually have practical learning, and also being able to put everyone on the table and having sustainable food systems created by stakeholders. We have to be able to know who are the stakeholders that we're working with in the whole food system. Of course, we've talked about the enabling policy environment. And I've given the example of Kenya, that has the national agroecology strategy that is in draft stage. Hopefully it's going to be passed very soon. But, without having the foundation of having a good policy environment, it's going to be very difficult for us to actually go to practice. And for a long time, we've had this huge gap between policy and practice, where the policy makers are on this side, the practitioners, we are very far from them. There's no bridge. And one of the bridges that can actually help is actually being able to make sure that farmers are going to be one of the key decision makers. And what has happened is, even in my village, right now we've actually been able to bring about advocacy and policy in my village, whereby the county development plans have actually been mainstreamed with agroecology because of the work that we're doing with farmers and making sure that farmers are at the decision-making table. And even, at a personal level, and even as Sylvia's basket, we're really pushing to make sure that we are the ones making the decisions and we are at the table with other stakeholders. And of course, being able to work with media as a partner and, to help us to disseminate this information, and also having online platforms, that are able to make sure that, like this one, of course, we are here on an online platform, we are hundreds of us from all over the world learning about food systems, which is wonderful, but also being able to make sure that, we're able to spread the agroecology, on these online platforms. And then here, this slide will basically just be, sharing about our intervention, our systems initiative, Sylvia's basket, which is working with small smallholder farmers, supporting them to actually be able to access markets, and also being able to train farmers, to make sure that also farmers have got this knowledge. So when you look at the picture at the bottom that is talking about the food supply chain, and this is the question I keep asking, and that's something that I want us to reflect even right now. Ask yourself, how long does your food have to travel from the farm to your plate? hopefully it's going to take the shortest, distance, because that's what we want to do for us to actually be able to have sustainable diets, sustainable food systems. When you think about our retail food, our farming, when food is, when you are growing food on the farm, sometimes it has to be processed. But for us as our model, we normally don't do much of the processing because most of our produce is actually just fresh, but then we have the farm and then the processing, then logistics, sometimes storage. For us, we also try to make sure that, from farm to plate, not more than 24 hours or not too much more longer than that. And then now from storage, then the food gets to your plate and it gets to your home, to your restaurants, and to the local places. So I think for here, we want to be able to promote, agroecology actually is promoting short food chains whereby food doesn't have to travel too long. But then for small scale farmers, to actually be in the market, for a long time, think about the food systems, all the way from producers to the end. We find that farmers, again, we always say farmers should be at the top and farmers should be the biggest beneficiaries. But the truth is, on the ground, that hardly ever does happen. But then now for us, we are trying to push for training farmers on market intelligence. And this is basically farmers knowing what to plant, when to plant it, how to get to the market, what price are you going to be able to use, so that at the end of the day, in the food systems, the money should actually get to the farmers' pockets. But many times you find that the farmers actually get the short end of the stick. But then for us, we also want to be able to provide logistical support. I put it right there, because, without having the logistical support, we're finding that farmers are really struggling. Like here in Africa, sometimes when it rains, you don't get produce to the farm. And then being able to, create aggregation hubs. For us, Sylvia's Basket, we're actually working with more than 50 farmers every single week. We'll bulk the organic produce and then we sell the produce to our clients in Nairobi. And how we're doing this is that we have created aggregation hubs, whereby we're able to bulk produce. And then we also support the farmers with input support in terms of organic fertilizer, organic inputs. And then, of course, we've trained them and supporting them in this way. And then being able to support them and making sure that there's an available market. So I don't know what's happening, but someone is putting some squigglies on the presentation. I don't know, but anyway, but I think you can be able to see what's happening. But basically, oh, thanks for that. So what we're doing is actually being able to create an enabling environment for agroecological enterprises. The words I've put in bubbles on the left, for me, is actually the core of, what is going to make sure that farmers actually are able to grow their enterprises. One of them is making sure that farmers, of course, have access to a markets curriculum. We talked about the markets intelligence. And right now, at Sylvia's Basket, with other partners, we're actually working on creating a very specific curriculum for farmers to actually be able to know about marketing. You find when you do farmer trainings, the training normally, has lots of topics from production to different things and processing. But the marketing one is normally very brief on the last day, 1 or 2 hours. And yet that is the core, for farmers to actually be able to adopt these technologies and to actually grow. And then also, of course, I talk about working with logistical partners to make sure that we are able to get this produce to the market. And then, of course, being able to document and disseminate information on agroecology to as many farmers as possible on the continent and globally. And for us, our focus in terms of enabling environment, our focus, like in this regard, is to be able to simplify business registration and licensing. You find that many of us as farmers, we're not able to get to the markets because, we don't know about how to get our registration, our licensing. And then also we talked about policy being the foundational way in which we are able to make sure that we have a good, conducive environment for businesses to actually be able to grow. And then enabling better access to finance. I mean, this has been happening for, tens of years, but somehow we still haven't cracked the code. But for me, I actually think that for finance, it's better to actually support the farmers to get to the market. Giving farmers money when they still have to be able to meet their everyday needs, and then telling them to use that money to grow a business might not really work very well. I think what works best is actually being able to get finance to the market, being able to scale up, and then be able to grow your business from there. And of course, being able to enhance public and private dialogue, whereby you are working with governments, different stakeholders. And then for us, who are mainly growing organic and agroecological produce, you're talking about appropriate quality standards. When you get to the market, how will you know that this product has been grown sustainably, that it's organic? How do you get the standards and the labeling and things of the sort? And of course, eventually being able to have sustainable markets. And finally, how do we get to have systems change? And systems change, basically starts as an individual. And for me today, I was basically just sharing my story about Sylvia's Basket and how we've grown our business from 2016 doing home delivery. But then now, basically as an individual, we've been able to start, like you can see, this is how I started on the left, with just a few vegetables. This is a basket that I used to deliver to my clients in Nairobi from my farm. But being able to work as an individual and having the vision, to actually be able to get this produce, to like our customers. And now we've moved to a collective change. I'm not working alone, but then we're actually working with more than 50 farmers every week, and being able to supply more than 100 homes in Nairobi with a ton and more of organic produce every single week. So we've moved from the individual change, and now we are working as a collective change. And with time, we are very, very hopeful that we're going to move to have a systems change and being able to make organic agroecological produce accessible and affordable to as many people as possible. Because when you think about it, safe food is actually a fundamental human right, and everyone should be able to access it. So everyone get in touch, and I'm sure we'll have a session at the end of this whereby you can be able to ask questions or just know more about what we're doing and clarify things and just share our experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. A very inspiring story. I've seen incredible comments and also certain praise to you for your initiative in the chat. Have a look at that. We're not going to address questions from the public at this moment. So if you have an urging, burning question and you don't want to forget it, take some time to jot it down, because at the end, after Rebecca's presentation, we will definitely have a little bit more of an open space where I'll invite all of you to ask your questions. So please don't forget, write it down, and we keep it to the last. Thanks again, Sylvia, for your presentation.